Hello everyone. Welcome to my teaching learning session. I'll be continuing with BPCG 172 Youth, Gender and Identity. I'm Sonal. Singh are taking care of BAG courses of psychology. So let's understand where were we with Unit 4 the last time. Continuing with the Unit 4, talking about how youth is impacted by their educational choices, how careers will make changes in their identity, and today we come to the most impacting feature of of this youth that we talk about as Generation Z. And this youth would be spoken in relationship to what are peers. The ones which are highlighted would be something that we would be continuing today. The peers, the significance to peers to their social development, which is what is the impact of social development to these peers. How does sexual friendship is something which is harmful, healthy, etc. And lastly, we will speak about the transition to adulthood. Is the transition safe? It's complete? Is it very healthy? Is it comfortable for some and not comfortable for some? So this is going to be the unit for today with completion, speaking about how our youth are impacted by the peers, the social development, the choices that they make in terms of friends, etc. So let's continue understanding what are peers to us. Peers are significantly the most important social group that we enter once we, grow of this age after the image made. So after we step out from our houses, which is the first primary group being the family, we have the most expansive group of social development, which is children speaking and talking about their peers. So peers or a group of people who have similar interest, age, and background or social status. As said, one of the most important source of information. This is like one of those sources where children take feedback, take acceptance, take support, guidance, and at times it's how do they look at themselves are also dependent upon this group. So their sense of self is 60%, I feel 60 to 65% has been groomed or been shaped by this group of common interest. Peers help in socializing us in many ways. So, making a new friend might help you open up to a new sphere or a new group of people. And at times, speaking to a friend or talking to a friend or entering to a friend group can possibly help you in terms of learning something new by acceptance, which is a reward, or probably withdrawal of affection could be a punishment to you. And peers are essential throughout one's social life. So we should remember, youth are not the only group that will speak about peers. It's for us also. Later, youth are also the ones who are going to speak about peers being an essential group of interest, common interest, the same age, the same background, who serve a lot about us, who serve us to understand a lot about us at times, and also to learn about the outside world. They educate us, they develop us socially, and also a lot of researchers have stated that, particularly during adolescence, this group seems to be the most active. So, yes, during the time we are in the youth, this group tends to be more active in terms of more pressing on us. They impact us more. We are surrounded by these people more in comparison to any other age of life. Now, let's understand more. Are there any positive, negative experiences, or we just have that positive impact of groups of common interest, peers? So, do we always get an impact which is positive in nature? Do we always get an impact which is negative? So, we need to know it's like two sides of one coin. We are impacted in both ways. There are times, at times, we are impacted positively, and they can also affect us negatively. They change the way we feel about ourselves. So remember, there can be days when children feel negative, sad, and unwanted because of the peer rejection that they have received lately. So studies show that in general, more friends you have, the more time that you spend with them, which is very true. If you have a lot of friends at around your house, lot of friends around your school, lot of friends around your school area, other friends, so your time bracket has to incorporate everybody. So you end up spending more time with them. So, and it's stated the more time that the adolescent and youth spends with youth, happy youth, they tend to be happier. So, but also remember, quantity is not something that's going to be equal to the happiness index. It's the quality that's going to be equal to the happiness index. There can be people who just have two friends and are happier than the ones who have 20 of them. So, quality of those friendship, not only quantity, really makes the difference. Quality of friendship has been linked to higher life satisfaction and better mental health. This is something, as parents are always educating. teenagers and the youth, and also the teachers educating them about good friends and bad friends. Sounds very, very, black and white, but that's how we need to work to understand that there are some people who are not correct for us, some people who are not the lock and key fit for us. Their ideologies are separate. They might make a huge change in your personality, the way you see things, the way you want to modify yourself, adapt to things. They might be a complete different individual to that, and because of being different the impact would be different to you. You might want to get into the kind of lifestyle that they're living, but that's not your lifestyle. That's not something that's going to be suited to you. So that's why it's said that the quality, when you have a similar interest, same age, same background, and if the quality, which is the networking that you hold, is so strong and so healthy, guiding, remember it is directly proportional to higher life satisfaction and obviously an increase in mental health. You seem to be you tend to be more happier, you tend to be more satisfied, and the more happier, the more content, and the more understanding that you get of yourself positively, the better is going to be your mental health. Now, understanding, we've already stating a research. We have all, this is quote unquote stated, we have all experienced letting a friendship go because it didn't feel great. This is stated by Dr. Rebecca of Dr. Rebecca Met of University of Maine. Her lab studies shows how peer relationship can impact the emotional development of children and teenagers, which is very true. That the reason that I stated when I started this topic was that this is one of the most expensive group that we end up spending maximum amount of time as soon as we are 4, 5, and 6 years of age till the later stages of our life, depending upon people to people, each is to one's own. So speaking of that, if we see, it is directly related, directly proportional to the better that your peer relationships are, the happier that you're going to be. Your emotional quotient tends to increase. You tend to understand, analyze, reflect on people better, and that's going to be impacting on your emotional development as a child also, and later as a teenager also. So friendships you feel you want to let go because they're of low quality, because they add a lot of fraud, they add a lot of criticism, aggression, and also at times very low level of confidence. For youth, low level of quality of friendship are linked to. So if you do not have great friends, this is something which is an indicator that you also can check that if you do not have great friends, your academic performance might fall short of your performance which has been there lately, and you would constantly require validation about how good are you, how bad are you. Your self-worth is always a question mark to yourself. You need constant support, you do not feel independent, and your peer relationships are itself not satisfying and stable. So what you're actually into also do not makes you feel satisfied, contented, and stable. So that's something that we need to know, that what a low quality peer is going to be all about. Then let's move on to peer relationships. What are peer relationships, and what are they? Are there any kinds in that? So children's notion of friendship often focus on shared activities. When it comes to teenagers, it's going to be similar thoughts, ideas, and feelings, ideologies. And during adolescent, peer groups evolve primarily single sex to mixed sex friendship, which will be studying later. That as adolescent, the greater concern comes in that we tend to get open up to both genders and mixed genders. So adolescents peer group gets very diverse now, and they tend to relate to people who are of similar behavior and attitude, similar ideology. So this has been explained as homophily, which is adolescents who are similar to one another, choose to spend time with one another, which is birds of a feather flock together, which is similar people, similar likes and dislikes will attract you more. And they tend to influence each other also more. So the more that you spend time with somebody, the more they will be now involved in your shaping and your adaptation to the world. So if you are spending in a day of 6 hours of education of school is obviously taken in consideration. Apart that, you're talking to them over the phone. So if you pick up 9 hours of your day journey spent with somebody who's similar thought, attitude, and behaviors, remember they will now be more involved in making changes in your behavior, making changes in the way you understand the environment, and you shape up the environment too. Speaking of that, what are peer relationships? Peer relationships are thought to play an important role in children's development, which is the kind of relationship that we hold with our friends are extremely important. They are very unique in terms of the opportunities that they provide for getting acquainted with social norms, processes involved in interpersonal relationships. Learning of new skills also comes with good peer relationships. They also provide you context in which capacities for self-control may be tested and refined, which is very true. Some features that we form as an adolescent in the kind of peer relationship that we hold. Better values, and you are more tolerant of people, and you end up becoming multifaceted because you understand one person and another person. Your peer interaction gets very rich, which is you learn various ways of interacting with people because you're not just speaking to one but many. Children experience peer interaction through their participation in various activities, which could be a dyad one to one, it could be multi ways also, which is more than a dyad. So they not only form your self concept, they also shape you. At times, a peer relationship will also add values, make you learn new skills, make you feel tested, increase your self control, also your tolerance of people, and your interaction with other people will be far more richer than before. So this is what peer relationship gives us. They are age related, and also a lot of developmental opportunities that you guys get. That as if a teen is very active in curricular and co-curricular activities, they tend to they tend to influence their friends to be a part of it too. So if you will find one peer being very socially active, comparing in school, doing an act, doing something or the other, the first thing that they will do is rope in their friends and tell the teachers, I want my friend to be included too. And obviously you give them opportunities. Various developmental opportunities where identities can also be formed, which is crucial for a teenager. As we said, what kind of social value orientation peer relationship provides us? Cooperative tendencies, as I said, interpersonal trust and social value orientation. Better modified, better adjusted with people. Cooperative tendency will speak about being tolerating, being self-control, interpersonal, which is wide variety of rich interaction that they hold and provide you too. Now, after this, let's move to the socializing mechanism of peer groups. We have the mechanism that peers use to socialize themselves. This was given by Burns ideally, that there are various mechanisms through which the peers interact with one another, reinforce one another. Also, these mechanisms are ways in which peers are appreciating or demeaning their friends. So it could be both. As we said, there are positive and negative impacts both. So it could be both to the peer. So let's go to the first ways of the first mechanism that we have of peer, which is called the reinforcement. Reinforcement is one of the most common thing that I feel we all have, which is the reason that reinforcement is so important is that at times being rewarded, which is being a stimulus if you want to have a great behavior, and your peer supports you in your great behavior, validates you, that becomes a reward to you. So they're rewarding your values, they're rewarding your social behavior, they're rewarding the way you behave. So what are positive reinforcements are reward given for desired responses that are needed. So for positive reinforcement, it could be you giving a speech or you giving an activity in class and your peers clapping for you greatly. That's like a little, that's a lot, that's an amount of boost that comes to you, that okay, I am accepted. That's why I've been cheered and clapped upon. So these are way of reinforcement, smaller ways of reinforcement. Also appreciating one another of wearing something, which is very important for the body image. I feel in today's times, teenagers and youth is greatly impacted by psychological eating disorders, just because they're wrongly impacted by how their friends look, how their friends dress up, their friends way. That's extremely important. And that walk, that baby step of getting appreciated, getting acknowledged, getting supported and appreciated of how they look, how you dress, an extremely important factor I feel of validation that comes to the teenagers. Also, there are some accepting behaviors for teens could be, doing a good deed back for a teen, accepting them, appreciating them, being at their back, which is supporting them in education, providing information when they're not present. These are smaller ways that can be rewarded for a desirable behavior, and that makes them feel happy about them. This is the way your teens, which your friends, tend to support you. Then there is modeling. Modeling is on the basis of observational learning, which was given by Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura stated that the children learn most of their social values and behaviors through observation, and observation of those behaviors that are seen as rewarded and accepted. So I feel this is one of the most important tool of socialization. Modeling is a form of imitative learning that occurs through observation, and it is. I feel it's an entire field of things through which we can explore, adapt, learn, copy, which is you can copy or imitate behaviors, attitude, values of people that you like and you feel are being appreciated, emotions by watching others. You can become more tolerant by watching others. You can become more accepting. You can become more happier at times by just watching others, which is you feel that okay, these are my friends and they stay happy most of the time. They're happy with the amount of work that they do. They're in a happy space most of the time. So the child learns to do the same. So happier friends and observation, positive emotions, not bullying other people, being appreciative of other people, complimenting others, being there for others. All of these things, when as observed, is also copied by the other teens. And teens may also at times learn inappropriate behaviors, which is aggression, bullying, teasing. And we learn it and it gets rewarded by our teens itself. So if you bullied somebody and your friend says, "Oh, great, what have you done? That's so amazing," you will feel that bullying is a right activity, which is as we can learn appropriate behaviors, we can equally learn inappropriate behaviors. Then we have punishment. Punishment can be both coming from psychological and physical terms when we talk about teens. At times, getting into fights, it's like psychologically aversive stimuli or temporary withdrawal of a pleasant stimuli is called as punishment. Punishment can be Example of punishment can be removal of privileges, love, affection. It could be scolding, it could be harshly lecturing a child. And punishments can also be done in a social condition by not giving opportunities. These are also consistently expecting greater result under pressure. Accompanying punishment with an explanation and solution is reasoning. That's one of the best ways of punishing. Also, some of the punishments are timing, which is punishing the child closer to the time of their undesirable behavior, which is punishing children at the time when teenagers are a time when they are doing the undesirable behavior. This punishment is something I feel not very correctly used by teenager. My reason of saying this is that teenagers usually use punishment in terms of withdrawal of affection, neglecting their friends, scolding, harshly behaving with them, giving them ignorance, which turns out to be more negative. If teenagers learn to put it in terms of timing, reasoning, and consistency, that will, as per Byrne, these punishment will impact the peers very positively. Then after this, we have apprenticeship, which is a process in which a novice is guided by expert or to practice in or master tasks. Burns stated that children are guided by apprenticeship in all settings. It could be by their parents, teachers, coach, members of community, and apprenticeship is, I feel it's one of the most effective ways of building that self-esteem and efficacy in children. So if children are getting a friend who's very knowledgeable, who reads a lot, and they read and share with each other, and when we talk about read and sharing, which is read a book, share about it with their friends, telling them how it was important, how this is so important to know in the world. That's like a guide. And also at times this can be taken as an expert thing. When your friend is getting guided by a mentor who's extremely dynamic, you as a friend will also want to be guided by the same mentor. So you will move towards the same step, picking up the same steps and being apprentice by that guide, by their mentor, for to master that task. So you learn that factor to build in that concepts of self-esteem and efficacy, learning control through this process of apprenticeship. So this completes with the ways that teenagers are socializing the others, which is how peers are peer mechanism of socialization, which is punishment, apprenticeship, and speaking about rewards, which is positive reinforcement primarily, and also at the same time modeling, which is observing role models. Now let's understand peer dynamics. What are peer dynamics? Peer dynamics could be the kind of relationship and the statuses that we have around the peer grouping. So peer dynamic can be explained by the concept of sociometric status, and teen status among peers will always impact you at a greater level. I feel the way peers are judged, rated at times. You've seen nicknames that the youth gives each other in the group. That she's the brainy head, and she's the star icon. she's the guiding mentor in the group. So don't we give that bigger tags to friends in the group? So when you give that bigger tags to friends in a group, you get to know how is your membership being influenced in peer groups and what is your ability to make friends. This, I believe, can be judged, can be assessed through sociometric status. So, sociometric status is a measurement that reflects the degree to which someone is liked or disliked by their peers as a group. And it's extremely important. Once you get to know where do you stand at times, children can learn to get better with that. And at the same time, children can adolescent and youth can learn to learn the reasons that why someone is very popular and someone very aggressive as a friend. So who you need to avoid, the actively popular accepted one or the one who's aggressive and rejected most of the times. So this is something which we need to know in terms of sociometric status, which not only will highlight your peers, will also highlight your understanding about yourself in your peer group. This is how peer dynamics gets better, healthier, once we know each other and our statuses in the group. So let's understand the sociometric status by an image and this thought that when we talk about sociometry, there are four kinds. There are some who are accepted, there are some who are very popular, there's some who are very aggressive, hitting each other, always, always finding impulsive ways to behave, and there are one who are very withdrawn and rejected. We can say both to them. Now, speaking of accepted ones are the most popular in the group. So when we speak about most popular in the group, these are the ones who are loved by all in the group. So if you have a group of six, that a person would be loved by all the five in the group. So that's like the acceptability, the magnetic aura of that child. Also, speaking of that word called magnetism, why does that come? That tells us that individual's ideas, behaviors is noticed, is appreciated, and loved equally. So do you realize that individual is the most popular in the group being accepted, and one of the most popular group because he's accepted, and accepted means generally well liked for everything, like being intelligence, being personality, being any activity, being support. His ideas are accepted as to be correct. Now, speaking of the most popular are a little charismatic. They're the ones who attract people. So probably they are the ones through which membership to other members comes in. So they're the one of the most popular, good looking, charismatic, speaking beautifully, and their aura is something they're everywhere. So they draw other people in. So they tend to be at times they tend to be a little isolated and lonely. And when you're very popular, you have that little distance from other people because you do not want your charm and your charisma go to others. You want to maintain that, and because of that, other people are always following you. There's no someone who's a confidant to you. There is no someone who's close to you. So speaking of that, these people tend to be a little on the alone side. Risk of depression are higher in these people. And now we come to the rejected two categories. So these were the positive ones. Accepted are usually the more fulfilling people and the mentally healthy also. With popular, there's a gap from the other people. People tend to maintain distance because of their charisma and their brightness. People feel okay. She might not talk to me. I might go for guidance. I might go for acceptance to them, but they're so popular that they might not talk to me, and I might not be their type. So because of that popularity, there's a sense of loneliness, sense of aloneness, that sense of what do you call this, feeling alone that comes in and isolated, that can draw them into depression. Now coming to the rejected ones, there is aggressive rejected one and there is withdrawn rejected one. Aggressive display a lot of hostile and threatening behavior, as I said. Ones who are verbally and physically aggressive, very impulsive about their behaviors, their only ways of reactions are bullying other people, withholding commodities and objects of other people, then ignoring other people, hitting physically, name calling, swearing. And while they are lacking, they tend to overestimate their social esteem. This is for everybody who is aggressive in the school, hitting other people, bullying other, teasing other people. Remember the ones who does this, the one who's the aggressive, rejected ones with bullying, teasing, swearing, and hostile, threatening behaviors to others all the time. The lacking comes within themselves. They are hollow. They lack something as an identity, and that's the reason they put a facade around themselves that makes you feel that they're very negatively popular. So that's what the aggressive rejected truly is from inside. They are overestimating their social competence to be what they are not, to show what they are not. So ideally, they do lack a self-understanding. They do lack a self-esteem too. Now the withdrawn rejected teens are socially withdrawn. They tend to vary, they tend to feel very timid, they are not a part of most of the groups. They become very anxious in social gatherings, and drawing them to social gathering can lead them to panic attacks. They lack confidence mostly, and because of the fact that they're so timid and so withdrawn and don't want to be a part of places, and they hesitate most of the time, and they act a little away from other people, and they want to be at one corner. This puts them at the risk of being bullied and teased. So they can be at the risk of receiving the aggressive rejected ones, because they are quiet. Anything done to them does not get complained, does not get registered. They do not say it out, so they do get at risk of being bullied most of the time. So these are ways in a peer group you get to know the dynamics of the group. Who is the quiet one? Who's the aggressive one? Who's the most impulsive? Who stands out for their group all the time and pushes away everybody? Who's that charismatic one, the popular one who sits at the throne, I feel? And who's the most accepted one? The ones with high empathy, compassion, and being the confidant for people. So this is like a complete peer dynamic which can be assessed by sociometric statuses, and which reflects the degree to which a person is liked and disliked in a peer group. Completing this, let's move to something which is let's move to, as I stated, there's a picture also that we can assess here, which is the number of most liked dominance, many and few. The ones who are liked by everybody are a little controversial. The ones who are liked by few, like if you have 10 people and 6 of them like you, you'll be popular. 10 of them and 10 like you, this is like one of those popular ones which are controversial. Then there are ones who are the mediocre ones. Neither too many like them, neither too many hates them, and they're neither having many friends or less friends. Now, very less friends and least number of nomination is rejected, whereas many nomination and fewer nomination for being liked. Many nomination for least liked is rejected. Now your few states they are liked and few states they are not liked. These people are ideally the neglected ones. So when you have the few like nomination and few least like nomination, that makes you neglected. But then when you have few liked and few like least liked, many of them are not liked. So you have some people who like you and there are hundreds of them who don't. You obviously have to be the aggressive and the rejected ones. So this is how we find out in a social metric status. That how do we look? How do we are like that? And this builds, I feel, the tone of the peer dynamics at times, the group tone that we speak of. Now, moving ahead, let's move to the importance of peers to social development. So, are peers actually important to social development? My idea to this is a complete yes. The fact that peer relationships are so unique in nature, they tend to impact children in so many ways that few of the social learnings tend to happen automatically, like learning cooperation, empathy, sympathy to people, uh, better ways of problem solving and decision making. Peers also contribute to our negative behaviors, which is negative social development. They can make you the popular one, and the aggressive one make you stand and beat somebody. Aggressive, takes care of our group. So at times this can lead to you bullying other people, you being the deviant one, and you being the inclusion of the society, because you are learning the negative behaviors, the negative social development that you're learning. Also, uh, we tend to, when we talk about social learning and programs, universal and school-based social emotional learning programs provide a strong foundation for promoting healthy social emotional development and creating positive peer groups culture. So there are times that we can hold on to these children, which is we can support them in any sort of peer group by, I feel, providing workshops, providing mental health and physical social development workshops and foundation learning programs, so that that supports the dynamics completely. Also, children like who are experiencing peer difficulties tend to, need they need a lot of peer guidance. They need a lot of coaching. They need a constant counseling, telling them what kind of friends are important to them and not. And at times, peers are so involved with one another. They facilitate every step of your life. Judging of people, you are asking them how are they. Uh, Selecting people, you ask them. Selecting, I feel, stream and careers, at times you take up a career stream and you pick up a school and college just because your friend is going. You pick up a stream just because your friend is going. They're so influential. They facilitate every small step at time. So Erickson refers to adolescence as a crisis of identity versus role confusion, and which we all know. Identity crisis and role confusion is one of the most important stages of life, which is built through Eric Erickson's idea of social development. His idea of social development is that during this time, adolescent tries to discover where they fit in and who they want to be in the, who they want to be like in the future as a member of society. They also understand and solidify their identities. During adolescence, teens often experiment with several identities in order to develop there. So they explore a lot, and this exploration is facilitated by peers in the social community, where teachers also come in, where I feel peers also come in, the community which is beyond peers, partners, peers that we have, same sex friends and opposite sex friends also come in here. So peer development and identity development at time can be greatly influenced by these sociometric statuses, friends of yours, maybe the popular one, the charismatic one, the rejected one at times, the withdrawn one can also influence us. If you have friends like that, they will obviously influence you the way they are, their identities and personality are. So, yes, it does facilitate social development. It can be both positive and negative. Now, let's understand what is cross-sex friendship. Does the CSF plays a very important role? It says that it's a key role in emerging as an emerging adult. It's like a skill to learn to interact with these opposite gender and cross-sex friendship. The bargoing body of research in the past decades have shown that individuals successfully establish and maintain a platonic CSFs, and this specific type of friendship, although unique in certain aspects, provides same benefits as same-sex friendships. So they're trying to say with a huge amount of researches that has been done, it has been stated that yes, this relationship is a little platonic, and speaking of that, the benefits that you get from the same sex friendship and you get the opposite is same. So what you get as a girl and a girlfriend, you always will get the same kind of benefit from the boy and a girl friendship. Studies also reported at this chapter that CSF quality is reliable correlation to happiness and explains that variance in happiness when taking personality into account in two different cultures, which states that uh, the more that you are having the vibrant group of friendship in terms of CSFs, it is associated to friendship because you're speaking to diversity, interacting with diversity, indulging personalities with different cultures really make an impact on the person. That makes us feel happy, that makes us feel fulfilling. And I'll tell you, how does that CSFs makes us feel? Very relaxed, very understood. And also when you have an opposite gender friend, the the ideas that are different tends to have a match. You get to know about people about different ideology and different gender. You get to know when the gender is different how people are going to behave. So it does lead to personality grooming too. So the task before us to show and how that why the CSF experiences are related to happiness and advancement. And we believe that it is so because of the amount of attention it receives in becoming a decade, and hope in the future things that we study about teens will be able to understand what is the association. The association of the same gender and opposite gender. Why it's important to have an opposite gender friendship, because you women tend to rely on men in different aspects of security and as a youth security and support, whereas male tend to support in terms of emotional development and emotional maturity. So do you see it is beneficial, but it focuses on higher happiness and contentment in each other's life having one like that. So it does play a very important and vital role. Having this will lead to social and emotional development both of the youth. Now, during this transition, let's understand, we finish it, coming to the end of this unit. We started peers. Peers are so important. They even encourage us to be who we are. So let's understand when we are exiting this stage of development as the teen, the adolescent, the youth to adulthood, how does it look like? See, we are moving from being a little risky to becoming now more mature, taking up responsibility, feeling, putting in people's expectation, which is giving in to people's expectations and achieving them, becoming responsible for one's own self, making independent decisions and problem solving on your own, becoming self-sufficient and self-reliant. Arnett in 2000 has stated this, which is very close to the number of years. Also, this process is categorized by achievement of new rules as young people. So, as a youth, we were at the risk of doing things. Now, as an adult, we need to hold up responsibility, take that role, and become that. So, a sense of personal autonomy, of doing, picking up choices, but making the right choice. It's not only just making a choice, but making the right choice, making a responsible choice, showing the more responsible emotional and functional independence in the world. We expect you to be functionally and emotionally more independent as adult as being teenagers. Let's understand in the transition like this. I feel the difference will help us understand what were we as adolescent and what can we be as a youth adult. So when we speak about difference, see, adolescent is the hitting of puberty. We here identify healthcare providers, and these are the times that we require a lot of healthcare, and no identification of healthcare provider, especially for males, is required. Youth adults usually do not require, their self-sufficient. Financial system in place for adolescent, because financial system is still not emerged. It's in place because it's getting by the other people. You're recovering it and taking it from other people. And this is just healthcare that we are talking about. And then when we talk about financial system, here it's emerging. Healthcare with adolescent is, organizational setups are there, but there are no identified with adults. Also, not a very high use, non-traditional source of care. Here it's a high of non-traditional care. The adolescent usually go through what is conventionally being done as healthcare. The adults now emerge with the kind of healthcare they need to take care of. Their minority play, parents are playing an important role. They have the rights to themselves now. They need to take care of your health, manage their risky behaviors. This is healthcare. Now let's understand them socially. Adolescent socially, the youth, yes, risky behaviors, confused, building identities. Youth as adults, autonomous, taking up jobs, making choices, and socially much more settled. Let's understand emotionally. Turmoil of emotions, being bullied, bullying other people, aggressive behaviors. Again, a sense of confusion where identity is being explored. We are getting observed and observing role model reinforced by multiple people and forming and trying to form our identity. Youth, if it's comfortable, identity being formed, looking for career choices, looking for stability and intimacy in life. And if it's confused, remember, if it's a youth being confused and no emotionally development, no contentment and happiness, goes to mental health illness in the adulthood. So, did you realize how this entire thing is so connected? We need to understand that youth is such an important factor developing in our country because they are the providers for the youth for the coming times. They are the providers, the takers, and the givers also of the coming times. So it's extremely important that we need to understand as being youth, if you are training, counseling, mental health support, emotional development, physical development, all is extremely important in the field of psychology for them. Now, finishing with Unit 4, let's get into the idea of Unit 5 of BPCG 172, Youth, Gender and Identity. We are now going to talk about youth culture, the fascinating stuff which is now the Gen Z coming to. What is youth culture? The influence of media and globalization on us. Starting, we are going to do a little bit of introduction, and we are going to 5.3. We are going to start with youth culture. Youth culture, we'll talk about features of it, consumerism that we are going to talk about, impact of media on youth, and that completes it, Unit 5. A very quick fix and a quick learning to this. Understanding that children who are listening to us are youth, and we stand here as adults. We see what is culture to us. Culture is same. It's the way of life, including art, beliefs, rituals, institution of population that are passed down from generation to generation. Culture is being caused as the way of life for an entire society. Completely true. Culture is a way of living for people within it. We need to identify it because we need to identify the kind of life that we want to live in that culture. So we need to identify to the art, to the belief, to the people, the ethnicity, the norms of society. Now, what is youth culture? A very new and fascinating term, culture of the youth, if we simply in layman language understand it. So, operationally, youth culture refers to cultural practices of members of this age group by which they express their identities, demonstrate their sense of belonging to a particular group of young people. Early conception of juvenile cultural expression advocated the idea that youth as a social group adheres to common values, goals, behaviors distinct from those of the adult world. And these are succeeded by models that paid greater attention to the internal differentiation of youth culture. So, what is youth culture? The culture of the youth where they culturally practice being together, express their identities to one another, their ideas, demonstrate their skills, learn sense of belongingness and safety. And obviously, they learn the concept of juvenile culture expression. They understand what is right and what is wrong in their culture, what are challenges and what are opportunities. Now let's understand what are the features of the youth culture. Are there any sort of features which makes this culture different from the young adult or the children that we have grown up from tenure to a puberty child as youth and then later as adult? Is there any difference in this culture? There is. There are some features that we will speak about. There are five features, which is generational consciousness. This also, this is like a feeling which is entailing psychological disconnection from the previous generation, their life and situation and their ideologies. I feel this is completely true. When we speak about adolescent and we ourselves have studied the cognitive development, we have studied that adolescents have that sense of personal fable and imaginary audience that my problems are my problems, no one are going to understand it, and what is going on. And at times, some little visible thing is the attention of everybody in my life. So that's the reason they experience a disconnection from the previous generation as children. And obviously, when they talk about ideology, they similarly experience a little disconnection from a two generation later, which is, your parents, they do experience a lot of rebellion because they feel that they're different in ideology, culture, the way they perceive situation, understand situation, and that's the time we find adolescents, youth speaking. You never understand my problems. My problems are something that you will never, because you've not gone through it. So this is like which makes them away from the previous generation. This creates a ripe condition for the emergence of youth culture. Youth cultures are profoundly, you know, influenced by media. With media, I will also say social media and globalization, the upcoming changes in the society, and also to just you know combinedly finish what is generational consciousness. It's a subjective experience of living and lived through certain socio-political event of their own life and socio-political incidences of their times. Like pandemic has been an event both for the Gen Zs, the millennials, and Alpha generation. So the way that they have perceived the social and emotional and political events, their subjective experience of that is their generational consciousness, which is different from the prior, completely different from the prior. Now, moving ahead, this is what the youth looks like, I feel today. A lot of music, a culture, fun, a little laid-backness, a little strengthenedness, a lot of anxiety about it, about plans, about life, which comes in with youth culture. Now, let's understand with the second feature. The second feature is the relationship of youth lifestyles within ethnicity, class, and gender. Here we are understanding how does youth understand the different ethnicity, the classes, and gender, and how are they impacting their development. Is the gender understanding different for them? Do they perceive it differently? So there is a substantial variation in the academic performance of different ethnic, gender, and socioeconomic groups. And the intersection between these reveal distinct patterns of achievement. So, patterns also vary from stages, phases of education, with some groups performing well at primary school. And research in social stratification tend to focus on class differences in education, occupational attainment, with particular attention to primary and secondary efforts in the former, and class reproduction is in the later domain. Research in ethnicity tends to focus on how ethnic penalty and premiums are being present. So, speaking of this, this talks about how youth considers ethnicity in their times and class. So, class can be judged in terms of social competence of the society of that class. At times, people now in nowadays children feel luxury and a lot of economical upliftment, which is just seen, not stability, but which is seen like in social media, going out every day, putting something every day. That's like a social class that they have developed, which they feel is uplifting, which they think is an achievement. This is their pattern of achievement, in the social thought, and also the social stratification of classes, particularly in educational and occupational attainment. So, if someone displays their work as very high, often displays as very fulfilling on the media, on the society, remember that will be considered to be a high class to them. People who do not have an educational setup which is great, educational setup which is, I would not like to use the word, but I feel fancy, is something like the world is accepting in terms of youth fancy, and they do not see the attainment in terms of grades, but attainment in terms of class. That particular attention does varies and tells you that how are you having the kind of lifestyle that you see is impacted, greatly impacted by how we perceive the society. It's not the classes and gender that we perceive differently, at the earlier times. It's very different today. Now, then there's another feature. Counterculture has been a very important thing, which refers to the movement that sets itself in opposition to the mainstream, which is being against being against the dominant culture, which is like counterculturing movements often. But some movements of counterculture, but not always seek to right injustices, right to marginalized groups. At times, remember, counterculture is not about highlighting the correct culture and repressing the dominant and the conventional culture, which might not be a fit, but at times it just want to sideline the conventional and traditional culture and want to be the part. Like in 1960s, tension developed, along generational lines regarding experimentation with drugs, when drugs were getting legalized somewhere, race relationship, sexual morals of and women rights were getting on the platter, people doing intimacy and PTS on the street. These all in 1960s when started, getting too much. There was a shift from the conventional culture to counterculture. New cultural norms being emerged. Another example, the hippies became the largest counterculture movement in the United States and fighting for more openness within the mainstream culture and civil rights, especially drugs, being a part of being able to smoke and drink and take alcohol, escalating that movement, which lead to a lot of conflicts in Vietnam. See, we need to know when there is a new culture coming in, it gets in its values. Those values might not be a fit to you. Like I'll give you an example of Indian values here. When we take in live in relationships, having the ability to drink and use substances at workplaces, and having substances readily available in the environment at pubs and restaurants. Remember, this is a counterculture that has happened 20 to 15 to 20 years back when we had malls coming to India. So with this also came as a counterculture, which now are completely as a part of life, submerged in us. Also, this is like a part of Indian thing that I'm telling you, something which is Indian. Now, when we speak of some other examples, which is bands and artists such as Jefferson Airplane, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, expressed their views about drugs and the Vietnam through the generation of music. Also, most of the social movement in USA was having a shared explanation of drugs and uses of LSDs, which were not good. LSDs were also used as medication, but not used so globally. So hippie culture was a threat to them, but as a counterculture, it's available. It's been a part. Now there are changes in the world regarding it. It has come in more acceptable ways, but remember, any changes in the norms will get difficulty for people living in there. So that's like one of the features that we experience in India also. Another feature is lifestyle. Obviously, whenever there's youth coming in, we need to know youth comes with their own ideas, ideologies, and there are lifestyle changes. Like pandemic has got us online eating outlets so much that children wants a reinforcement is please order me this. Another reinforcement, please take me to this restaurant. Children are getting very, e- exploring it, getting influenced, and the picture in the school grounds and the regular hangouts are now very separate. The hangouts are not physical activities. The hangouts is sitting, clicking pictures, taking selfies, putting it on the social media, adding music. The physical development is not now what the lifestyle is. Their thinking is self-conscious, has changed to healthy body, healthy mind, to bikes, cars, gadgets, nightlife. That's completely changing today. Social media in hand, which is gadget being a high amount of data, laptops, all of this has also something which is the features of the current youth. Also, help in evolving the dominant culture. Remember, youth is somebody who bridges the gap between or bridges the culture with the lifestyle which is happening around the. So they're the agent in promoting peace also and bringing changes also. So they are the people who incorporate the new culture, adapt with it, and make it a huger part of life. So if the I feel if the youth knows what is correct for the country, the lifestyle that we are modifying and incorporating would be very healthy. So I feel the youth today is as we consider the topic, the youth today needs to understand that it's important to know what is right and wrong, because they are the bridge to hold it and make any culture dominant. Anything that comes to India impacts the youth first, and they start using it and it becomes a lifestyle for us. So I feel that's something which is an important part of the youth culture. As I said, dominant culture. Examples are heteronormity, patriarchy in most society, Christianity in West, English as a lingua franca, and so this is dominant culture, not necessarily linked to majority, but closer relationship to the ruling class playing an important part in facilitating that culture. So we need to make sure that we evolve with the correct culture in society. Our youth needs to know that too. Now, speaking about youth culture, globalization, and consumerism, we need to know that there has been a play also. Eric Erickson stated that play is an adolescent. Most reactive generation is the youth to media. They get fancied by color, shape, texture, sound, attractiveness, advertisement, etc., which not only allows consumerism to become a huger part of our society, but it's also getting forecasted on media of different kinds. Social media is one of those things. So we need to know, is the childhood being perfect? Are the youth actually the right consumers today? We need to change this attitude and belief. So it's important to force the consumer to act on the right. Hence the development of the new route inside the store. Yes, I feel today's generation is taking mental health too seriously, learning a lot about it, which is leading to a defect in their attitude. They need to reinforce the right kind of mental health concerns, not make it a sense of attention to themselves and use it. So that's something which is consumerism, which is getting impacted by social media. Also, the right kind of behaviors, the right kind of attitude needs to be put up and learned rather than flashing it on social media by influencers. I feel we need to morely take it as an entertainment. It is an entertainment, and learn the attitudes and behaviors through modeling, social learning, and reinforcement, the main process of socialization. Then, psychological research has also shown that people who organize their life around consumerist goals, such as product acquisition, they end up reporting poorer mood. They're unhappy in relationships. There are psychological problems that comes to them. They, the more that the youth becomes a part of globalization and gets impacted by them, the bigger the consumer they will become. The bigger the consumer that you become, the more materialistic that you become. So you start hoarding. The self-esteem gets associated to higher price tagged items. So self-esteem goes down. There is depression. There could be bipolar tendencies in children, impulsive behaviors. Remember, materialism will lead to unhappier life because your standards of living cannot afford that materialism. The luxury that you want is not something that you're running amount. So you start using, the children start using credit cards, start taking loans, stop saving in for stability in future life. This is what consumerism is looking today in globalization. Also, we will be submerged. I feel my picture just showed that if the globalization keeps going on and we as youth do not become the bridge but becomes the advertisers for this and the biggest consumers, remember, we'll be raised to a time where we would be completely submerged in media and consumerism and not understanding that we need to act as the youth developers for the country and not just consumers. So that finishes with the aspect of consumerism, youth, and globalization. So we need to change our attitude to force the consumer act to become right and adaptive in our society. Now, moving ahead to the last topic that we have. So, is the media impacting the youth greatly? Is it a good mix or a bad mix? Does social media does lower our self-subjective well-being? Is social media really bad? And will social media come with any good to us? Will it support us at any point of time? This has become one of the most important things about youth, I feel. And also, there has been so many researches which has been done by the Common Sense Media. Approximately on 1,500 young people surveyed said that social media is so important for them in order to get support, advice, feel less lonely, express themselves creatively, as well as to stay in touch with their families and members. See how things have changed today. A youth used to celebrate their victories with families before, then with friends. Now, the youth is celebrating that now with not families but with social media. How? You flash it on the social media, take a picture, put it there, put up a song, tag 10 people. So that's how you look like on the social media. So, what do we need to understand? You need to feel less lonely with social media. Social media should be like an entertainment to us. It should not be a device of support and advice. The device of support and advice should only be there something which is researches, available, notes, journal, and the support and mentors should still be people. Role models should still be people to us. And 43% of people who are using social media are the most stressed. They are the most when we analyze them, the most anxious generation is coming from the usage of social media. Mental health issues or concerns are increasing in India also, because they are more depressed, they are more stressed. Because why are they stressed? Because they see that what kind of life the other people are living, and why can't we afford and live it? Because we have a different stream of living. We are coming from a different class of life. We are not something who are associated to glamour and living on media all the time. So that's the reason everyone wants an account in social media which is open, and they're doing something on that and showing to the world and earning. So that's what makes them so stressed, makes us open to defects, mental health issues. And among that, LGBTQ youth, 52% said that social media helps them feel better. Why? Because they are the hidden, genders. They find it difficult to express their emotion openly, so they feel speaking their heart out by question answers, by putting up a poll will help them and support them. There are, on the other hand, reporters also showed a strong association between social media usage and teen feeling depressed. Youth with moderate and severe depression symptoms are likely twice as to say they use social media amongst the constant. And one third of teens with depression are constant users of social media compared to 18% of youth who did not have depressive symptoms. So remember, the ones who do not show any social media, do not show symptoms of depression or any mental health concerns would be lower on social media. They might use social media as an entertainment, to buy something, to invest something, or to learn something. In terms of learn something, as in to know about the world, to know about what's happening around. Not to influence your attitude, not to learn a behavior which is common to everybody and something which is not a league, what is not in your league, not something which is you doing what in your life. So let's take an example. You're a psychologist and you want to be, and you get fancied with the kind of life, uh, you know, an actor is leading. The fancy life a model is having, a fancy life an influencer. You are dealing with mental health concerns. You need to be happy with the fact being able to treat two people, three people, and being able to help them lead a greater life. So this is what is different when we speak about in terms of the differences of how this is impacting humans greatly. Also, furthermore, symptoms have been reported. They were more anxious and lonely, depressed when they were using social media. So it was found people who use constant. I feel, youth can identify themselves. The one who was sticking to social media for greater amount of time will want to be alone. Will be feeling depressed about something or the other because they don't have what the others have, and their sense of comparison is with the wrong kind of people. Clearly, social media does not help teens who are already feeling depressed and seem to contribute to a negative outlook, which is exactly the right thing. We need to know social media is not impacting us in a greater way, it's not supporting us at a greater way. We need to use social media only as a minimal amount of consumers and entertainment, not getting influence, getting role model, developing our personality, developing our intelligence. That will never come from social media. Social media is a tool to entertainment. In the initial time, it was, and communication. It should not be a tool for your life reflection, personality reflection, and your life goal. This is where we need to draw a line because it is leading to further more development of psychological issues in generations of India. So India is also suffering. You can check, if you're teaching, dealing with children, Youth of a class of 30, 17 to 18 of them, at max 20 of them, will have some concerns in their life and they're flashing it somewhere and they're suffering and they've glorified it. Why? Because of social media. Because it is glorifying it there. So this finishes with the impact of social media on youth, understanding how globalization, consumerisms, and social media is impacting the youth. This completes with Unify also, helping educate also all of you with this. This finishes with advantages and disadvantages of the same. Thank you, everyone.